Hello, hello. Oh my gosh, I figured I would come on here and get you guys over to the group. You guys got to hear me here. All right, so for those of you who do not know me, my name is Raven Woods, and I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks IEP. And I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP meeting, okay? So I'm really excited about being on the page here, but you guys got to come over to the group because I got to hop over there because I have challenge number 17 to do. And I wanted to tell you, even though I'm coming live here on the group tomorrow about between 9 and 11, so hopefully you can catch me for those of you who are home. I'm going to be talking today about goals, but I wanted to hit you guys here with this because if you don't know how to do this, it's going to kill your child's IEP. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little teaser here. Okay, so for those of you who are new to this page, post a 1 below. If you are an oldie but goodie, post a 2 below. Make sure you get into those comments and say hello. Okay, don't be a stranger. I can't tell you how many times people will say, Raven, I've been watching you forever. And then all of a sudden, a couple months later, they say hello. So don't be a stranger. Say hello. I want to get to know you. All right. So yesterday on the group, so those of you who are on this page, I have a private group and I do a ton of stuff in there. So much more than here on the page. So if you're not part of the group, please go over to Autism Mama Rocks IEP group and I will accept you. Okay. Hey, Jesse, how are you? So I'm going to be going over there, going into more detail on goals, but I'm going to give you guys a teaser. Okay. So yesterday, I'm going to pull this up. Yesterday, we were talking about reading, all right? And I want to tell you about this because it's a problem that I actually have recently and had, and it's been a freaking nightmare, and I don't want you guys to go through this at all in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so I'm going to pull up some of these goals, and I'm going to go over them with you because I want you to understand how you need these to sound. And I talked about this yesterday for day 16 of the challenge because a lot of people don't know how to write SMART goals. It took me over a year to figure it out. Like, it sounds easier than it is, if that makes sense. And then as you write them, it kind of can get confusing. And then it just becomes kind of messed up. And then you want to go and you want to change it. And then it becomes this mess back and forth with the IEP team. And then they're not wanting to change it. And so I want you guys to know exactly how to write SMART goals. All right. So I'm going to go over a couple reading goals with you because this is really important for you to know. So is there anybody out there that has a child with dyslexia or dyspraxia, and maybe you are trying to get a reading specialist on board and it hasn't happened yet? Or do you have a child who needs reading more and is having issues and needs maybe accommodations, modifications? Tell me in the messages, in the posts, what your situation is. Post it, okay? Say yes, my child is having issues, or if you want to go into more detail, do that too, okay? So even though you're putting a 1 if you're new to the page on the chat and a 2 if you're an oldie but goodie, I want you to say yes if your child is having issues with reading, okay? Reading specifically. And if your child at all has any type of dyslexia, dyspraxia, that just doubles the reading issues at hand. Does that make sense? So when I talk about reading, it's a serious issue, guys, because in the educational setting, believe it or not, with children across the board, but specifically with children with special needs, reading and math are the core areas. Science, history, all that kind of stuff needs to come second to reading and math. Okay. Hey, Tara, how are you? And for those of you who are on here, share this so you can share it with the world because we are better together helping each other out. Okay. So if you share, I'll have a little gift for you. All right. So, one thing I want you to know about reading, okay? I'm going to go through this and I bet you it's going to make total sense. I'm actually going to share my screen. Hopefully it shows up. All right. Perfect. It did. All right. So, with reading, all right, as you can see here, my daughter had a evaluation with Linda Mood Bell. They're all over the United States. We had ours in Northern Virginia, and they are amazing, okay? And they explained to me in great depth on a Zoom conversation, so I have it recorded, where they introduced reading to me in a different way. And it was a totally different way of thinking. And me being a thinker and I love to analyze things, it was really interesting. All right. But when you hear me, when I talk about this, you're going to say, oh my gosh, my child is in reading and this isn't how they're learning and this is what they're focusing on. And reading is so important. That's why in IDEA, it states that most children should be able to read by the time they're in third grade. And if your child goes past third grade and can't read, that's a huge issue. You need to be throwing all kinds of fits in the school system if that's the case. Okay. So what I'm sharing here is how your child actually should be learning reading. Does that make sense? All right, let me try to make this smaller. Okay, so as you can see, there's 3 different areas. Let me see if I can zoom it. Hang on. All right. Zoom out. Is it out? Okay, perfect. All right. So maybe you can see it a little bit better now. Hold on, let me zoom out one more time. All right, I got this, y'all. Okay, perfect. All right, so as you can see, there's 3 circles and then there's a big circle. So what does that mean, Raven, right? All right, this is genius, guys, genius. All right, so once you learn this, you're going to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, because this is actually how your child should be learning to read. I'm not a reading specialist, but I learned, and this was a doctor in psychology who their specialty is dyslexia and dyspraxia, along with obviously teaching children how to read that don't have dyslexia and dyspraxia. And he has tons of scientifically based research that he has on this model with Linda Mood Bell. Obviously, they are top notch. They can't charge $27,000 for 12 weeks for nothing, and they wouldn't be in business. And he has tons of peer-reviewed journals that he has put out there. He's amazing. Okay, so I was really excited that he was able to talk to me. So how this works, I don't know if you can see my cursor. If you can see my cursor, post, like give me a thumbs up, all right? If you can't, it's okay. But make sure to say yes in the comments below if your child at all struggles with reading, okay? So what this means is the first area your child needs to start, okay, when it comes to reading, okay, they're being introduced to reading, they're going to a reading specialist in the school or outside of school. Believe it or not, your child needs to start with the auditory part of learning. Okay, awesome, Heather. Okay, so you gotta hear this, okay? So what that means is in the auditory part, there's different areas within the auditory circle there. Okay, and that's circle number 1 of where your child needs to start. What that includes is phonemic awareness, symbols and sounds, and decoding. All right, so one thing that is really important with the auditory part is phonemic awareness is key, but then they have to understand the sounds and symbols that is in the words to be able to understand what they mean, okay? But they have to hear that to be able to then process it in comprehension later. And believe it or not, comprehension is the last thing. All right. Then what happens is your child is then able to decode and they practice on decoding. Thank you guys for putting yes. Keep putting yes. I want to know if your child struggles with reading. Okay. And the number 1 thing that your child needs to be able to do to be able to even read is decode that word. Okay. So phonemic awareness, okay, symbols and sounds and hearing it, and decoding is an auditory thing. Taking a word, say, for example, something, and breaking it up. Something. thing, okay? And then putting together something, right? So that is auditory for a child to learn, and it's a word that they are going to, hopefully because of the symbols and sounds of words, repeating it, they then learn it, okay? Not memorize it, but they learn it by the repetitiveness of it, which is how most people learn, of doing it and doing it and doing it again, right? All right. After that, you go to the visual side, okay? And this is so important, guys. And actually, Linda Mood Bell flips them, okay? So I did that on purpose, all right? I said we're starting with the auditory, then we're going to phonemic awareness, then we're going to symbols and sounds, and then decoding. And I explained those to you, right? But guess what? That is not where you start. But guess what? That's where the schools start, right? They start with phonemic awareness, symbols and sounds, and decoding, which is very important. But that's where they start. They actually need to start on the visual side, okay? Where that includes symbol imagery and sight words. And what that means, guys, is they have to be able to visualize the story to then be able to make sense of it. All right. So knowing sight words, which is a repetitive over and over and over of learning them. All right. Because you have to know words to be able to then read. Right. And then you have to understand the symbol imagery of how that is going to be. All right. In seeing it. All right. And the visual side, for example, to explain it in adult terms, I guess, say you're listening to an Audible book, or say you're reading a book yourself, okay? And the first thing, at least I do when I'm reading a book, like I'm listening to an amazing book on Audible now, I'm like addicted, I formulate the picture of what do they look like, you know, what are they wearing, where are they at, you know what I mean? It's like we create this visualization of what we hear on Audible or what we're reading in the book, right? And then it helps us with comprehension of understanding the whole story, right? Same with kids, guys. So the visual side is number one, and the schools don't start there. They start on the auditory side with phonemic awareness, symbols and sounds, and decoding. Well, if you can't really do any of that, which is why, believe it or not, the percentage of children who learn within the school systems with special needs is only 35%. It's really bad. All right. Because a lot of kids have more issues than the school is willing to accept. I can't tell you how many people have said they won't put dyslexia in my IEP. Why won't they put it in? Well, if your child's diagnosed with it, they should. Okay. It doesn't change anything because it's always about impact of, disability. But that's going to impact their disability. That's going to impact reading. Okay. Among other things, possibly. So, the visual side is number one, okay? And believe it or not, a lot of reading specialists do not have the training, or believe it or not, the certification in the imagery side of reading. They don't have that, okay? So the visual part is number one, okay? Then you move on to the auditory, okay? So you have to see it first and be able to know those sight words and know and understand what you're looking at and formulate a picture in your mind to then go hear it in phonemic awareness, symbol and sounds, and then the decoding, which is breaking up words, okay? Then they move on to language, vocabulary, and contextual reading, okay? So they're building on what they're learning. They can picture it and see it, and they know those sight words so they can then read. They have the auditory part of phonemic awareness and symbol imagery and sounds and decoding. And then they move on to the language part of it and getting more in depth in vocabulary and contextual reading, okay? Then, and only then, does fluency happen, Okay, so it really, if you look at goals, a lot of kids who have goals in reading, you'll see fluency, comprehension, decoding, and then it stops. It has to have that visual and imagery part of it. And a lot of schools have not put that in their IEPs. They don't know how to do it, they don't know how to teach it, and a lot of them are not certified. Okay. And then the auditory part is what they do, which is the phonemic awareness and the decoding. And then most of them will include vocabulary, hopefully, that needs to be put into your reading goals, and contextual reading and language. All right. And then with those three together, that's why you see in the middle is fluency. You have to have 1, 2, 3 to have fluency. And then the big picture, as you see at the bottom, is comprehension and concept imagery and critical thinking skills and recall and vocabulary. So you keep building on that vocabulary. Keep putting yes if your child has reading issues and is struggling. All right? This is so important, guys. So important. So remember, take a picture of this if you want. All right? Take a screenshot. All right? It needs to be visual, symmetry, and symbol imagery. All right? Sight words. And it needs to be auditory, which is phonemic awareness, symbols, sounds, and decoding. So they have to learn the visual before they move on to the auditory. And then they move on to the building their language, building the vocabulary, and the contextual reading. Okay? If you don't know what that means, let me know. I'll post it. And then that creates the big picture, as you can see in the bigger circle, of then they're going to have comprehension. Then they're going to have concept imagery of being able to create an image of the whole concept, the whole picture, the purpose of the book of what they're reading. That's what that means. All right. And then start having critical thinking skills, of different things that are going on within the book. All right. And then they'll have recall of, oh, I remember reading that, and, different things like that. If you ask questions, they can recall something for you and then repeat it. And then as they're doing that, obviously they're building on their vocabulary. Okay. So do you see how that makes sense? And how it is totally different how the school system teaches them. They never start on a visual side. I don't think I've ever seen a school system or a child's goals where it starts with visual imagery, all right, and symbol imagery. And it's not good. All right. So this is a big reason of why a lot of kids are struggling in school. Okay. So that's super, super, super important. All right. So I'm going to go over a couple goals with you, and then I'm hopping over, guys. I'm hopping over to the group and doing my challenge. So if you guys haven't joined, make sure you do that. Okay. Make sure you hop over to Autism Mama Rocks the IEP. All right. And it's the group. You just have to say Autism Mama Rocks IEP group. All right. You got me? All right. So I'm going to read. Let me pull this up. All right. Here we go. I'm going to give you some, like, 2 goals, just so you can hear it and see how I change things up. All right. And it's really important, guys. It really is. All right. So share this if you know somebody who's struggling with their child's goals, because how you write goals, that's one of the main parts of your IEP. All right. And so understanding how to write them properly is huge. All right. So here's a goal. The child's name will identify the cause in a cause and effect relationship by October 2019. Okay. That is a short-term goal. All right. So now let's flip it back to what a larger goal built off that should look like. All right. So one could say the child's name will identify cause and effect relationships of a story on his or her instructional level with 90% accuracy or higher over 3 consecutive data collections. That goal sucks, and sucks some more. Okay? So, how that really should be written, I'm going to repeat it to you. All right? You can say, the child's name, whatever it is, will identify cause and effect relationships of a story on his or her instructional level, all right, with 90% accuracy or higher, all right? And then that's over 3 consecutive data collections. All right, so let me tear this up. Your child's name, let's just say your child's name's Samuel. All right, Samuel will identify cause and effect relationships. Okay, that makes sense. Of a story on his instructional level. Okay, there's your first question. If there's a question within goals, that means you need to redo it. All right, so instructional level. Well, what's the DRA level? All right, well, is it A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L? Whatever. All right, so you need to know your child's DRA level. All right, and so that is important to know what level they're on so that you know what they're building to. What is the goal of what they're going to be aiming towards? All right. So it should say Samuel will identify cause and effect relationships of a story on DRA level L with not 90% accuracy, with 9 out of 10 trials, or it can say on his instructional level L, or I would say on his DRA level L, 9 out of 10 times over, I would not, don't say consecutive, because that means in one session they have to just get it 2 out of 3 times, because that's 90% out of 3. No. So it needs to say Samuel will identify cause and effect relationships of a story on his DRA level L 9 out of 10 times over 30 days. Okay? Meaning he has to do it throughout that 30 days, 9 out of 10 times, not one time consecutively. That's in a row. So that's called memorization. You don't want your child memorizing goals. You want your child to learn them, not memorize them. Okay? Does that make sense? So then we break that goal down into 3, because as I say to all my group people, go and make sure you voice this, that you want quarterly IEPs, because it gives you the perfect opportunity to review your short-term goals and looking at how you're aiming towards that long-term goal. All right. So a short-term goal for what we just created on, Samuel will identify cause and effect relationships of a story on his DRA level L 9 out of 10 times over 30 days, over 14 days, whatever it is. Okay. You want to have a time frame in which that has to happen. Okay. Don't ever have percentages in your IEP, 90%, 70%, 80%. That's horrible. Because what is that? 90% out of what? 80% out of what? It leaves too much of a question mark. If your IEP goals leave any type of question mark, get rid of it. All right. And always get rid of if it says consecutive, because basically that's saying your child is memorizing this, and that's how we want to measure the goals. All right. And you also, guess what's missing out of that? All right. You want it to say 9 out of 10 times as measured by data collection over 30 days or whatever time frame you want to use. Okay. So let's re-say that goal. Samuel will identify cause and effect relationships of a story on his DRA level L. It can't say instructional level. You want it to say what level is he at? Where is he? On his DRA instructional L, 9 out of 10 times, not 90%, as measured by, okay, that's a key word, as measured by data collection over a 30-day period, or whatever it is you want to say, okay? Then you want to break it up. Samuel identified cause and effect relationships by such and such date. And then you want to say where they're going to be at. So it can say Samuel will identify the cause and effect relationships of a story, okay, at DRA level L by October 2019, okay? Then the next one can say Samuel identify the cause and effect relationship of a story by November, at DRA level M, and then just build, okay? So the yearly goal can actually be a higher DRA level, and then your first short-term goal can be, 3 levels below that, and then another one, and then another one, okay? Or you can just go down one, and that they stay at that for 2. Do you know what I'm saying? So if the goal is to get to L, all right, DRA level L, then the short-term goals could be, the first one could be at a DRA level K, and then the second one could be at a DRA level K again. Or it can be a J, and then the other 2 short-term can be a K, and then by the year they get to the L, okay? So however you want to do it, you want to make it attainable and actionable, which is part of the SMART goals, all right? But you want to make sure you break it down appropriately so that it makes sense and that it's easy to achieve for your child, or not easy, but you want to make sure that it's attainable. Okay, so again, if you're jumping on, make sure you post yes that your child has trouble with reading. I'm going to be talking about this a ton more, okay? So another one is Samuel will decode multisyllabic words and derive meaning from complex words that are on his instructional reading level. See all these screwed up, messed up stuff? With 90% accuracy across 3 consecutive data collections. That's horrible, okay? It needs to say, Samuel will decode multisyllabic words and derive meaning from complex words, such as, and you can add an attachment to that IEP of those complex words. What are those words? You want an attachment to the IEP, which you absolutely can do, with a list of those complex words that they're speaking about, okay? You want clarity, all right? That are on his instructional reading level. Nope. That are on DRA level L, okay? With 90% accuracy? Nope. 9 out of 10 times as measured by data collection. All right. That is how the yearly goal goes. All right. Then it can say, it already says 9 out of 10 times. All right. It doesn't need to say across 3 consecutive data collections. It just needs to say data collection. You can say over a 30-day period if you want, whatever you want to say, okay? But that should be in your short-term goals in actuality, okay? So a short term can be level H by October, level I by November, level J by December, all right? So that means that Samuel will decode multisyllabic words and derive meaning from complex words. Make sure you have that list of complex words so you're clear on what those are that are on his instructional level of reading. Nope. That are on his DRA level H or DRA level G, which, he's going to get to, H by October. Okay. With, 9 out of 10 times. Okay. It can even say the instructional level will increase by 2 levels. You can have a goal like that as well. But you always want 9 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, whatever. You do not want percentages, okay? You never want the word consecutive in your IEP at all either. And I wouldn't even put the word accuracy, okay? And then make sure you have 3 short-term goals at minimum, all right? You don't really want to have 5, 6, 7 short term. It just becomes a cluster mess and you don't need that. All right. So have a yearly goal and 3 to 4 short term goals. All right. I'll do one more reading for you. Let's do, okay, we'll do this. Samuel will write about an event. Hello, Grace. Hi, Allie. Hi, Nicole. Heather. Welcome, welcome. Make sure you post a 1 below if you're new and a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. All right. And definitely go join the group because I'm hopping over there next. We're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're actually going into math. Samuel will write about an event or personal experience by introducing the event or experience with at least one character and 2 or more events in a sequence. Good job, Sky. In a sequence and score a 3 out of 4 on a 4-point writing rubric on 3 consecutive data collections. Whoa. Way too much material. Okay, that is too much. All right, if it's confusing me to read it, it doesn't need to be there. Okay, so break that down. All right, so what I mean by that is it can say Samuel will write an event about an event. Okay, it can even, you can even go into what type of an event. It could say Samuel will write about a sport event or personal experience. I mean, you could specify it, all right? You could have one goal on a sport event. You could have one goal on just an environmental issue. You could, whatever you want to make it. It doesn't matter, okay? It obviously needs to be at your child's level, but, or where they're going to be with higher expectations, not low, but you don't want it to be where it's like impossible for them to get, okay? It's better to have more realistic goals that your child can attain and then build. If they master it, then build. All right. That doesn't mean just because it's in your IEP that if they master it beforehand, you can't build from that, which is why you want quarterly IEPs and why you want your yearly broken down into at least 3. So when you go into that quarterly IEP meeting, you're nailing down what goal should have been mastered by that quarterly IEP that you're attending. Do you see how genius this is? And by the time that you go to that quarterly IEP, guess what is supposed to be in your hands? Your progress report. So you take that progress report, you take the IEP, you slam it down on the freaking desk, and you talk about it in the IEP meeting. And you get down to the nitty gritty of the goals, okay? If things need addressed, if things need adjusted, if things need changed, whatever, you are meeting on a quarterly basis to address that. Because I'll tell you, addressing goals on a yearly basis is the stupidest thing anyone can do, because then you're taking that whole time and just giving the trust to the school of, okay, they're going to educate my child. They're not going to mess up. Nothing's going to happen. This is good. We're good to go. Really? And not check up on it at all? And just believe the progress reports? And then what happens when you get the progress reports and you have to send all these emails and then maybe they don't respond, or they respond in a way that isn't fully versed in the way you want it to come out and be explained to you. And it's just not cool, you know? So get into that meeting on a quarterly basis. And if they say, oh, we don't do that, then you ask for a meeting every quarter. All right. But if you let them know, hey, I'm going to ask for a meeting every quarter, I would like to meet each time, you know, a goal is supposed to be mastered. That's not unreasonable. You are allowed to do that. All right. So I just wanted to give you guys a teaser of what we're doing in the challenge over on the group. And, you know, just let you guys know how important how you write SMART goals is. All right. And you want to make sure all these horrible words that they put into goals are gone. All right. You've got to get rid of them. All right. Here's one that drives me insane. All right. Have you ever had a goal where it says given visual supports? Anybody? Raise your hand, like give me thumbs up or something, because what does that mean? Do you know what that means? What's a visual support? Visual support to what? A visual support concerning what? A visual support how? Who's giving the visual support? Do you see all these questions I'm building off that one comment of visual support? That means it does not belong in an IEP. All right? Unless it wants to say, given a visual support of XYZ. All right? So if it's going to say something where I got a question mark, you better have a reason and an explanation of what it is. I need to know what the physical thing is. So, given visual support of pictures within the story the child is reading, and you can even get down to what books they're going to read. All right. These are things that you got to think about, that if you want to know that, then that's what you need to put into the IEP. Or you can go download my daily communication sheet. All right. You have things like this, given visual supports of XYZ, or given visual supports of pictures in the book that the child's reading, et cetera, et cetera. Then you get the daily communication and you know what book your child's reading. You know what I mean? So in the daily communication sheet, you'll know when that book changes. So then in your IEP and your progress report, when you have that in your hand, you can take those together with the daily communication sheet, go to the IEP meeting, and you're able to reference them and say, oh, okay, so my child mastered this goal when he was reading Anne Frank. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to associate so that you can discuss and be an active member of that IEP team. Because if you don't understand how to write SMART goals, then you're just going to accept what's given to you, even though maybe your gut's saying, these are not right. Something is wrong. My child's IEP is messed up, but I just don't know what's messed up, you know? So, hey, Precious, how are you? So it's important to learn this. Set up a discovery call with me. It's free. And we can discuss it, okay? Because the last thing you want, the one thing that will hurt your child the most, is not services, accommodations, and modifications. It is goals. All right. So if I hate this one, look at that. Do you guys have that? Ugh, it drives me nuts. So whenever I have my hair up, I have this little like flyaway. All right. So make sure certain words are out of that IEP. Remember, no percentages. And if there's a question, get rid of it. Or make sure that question's answered within the goal. All right. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go over to the group and I'm going to talk to them. We're going to go through goals and how to write math goals. But I wanted to kind of repeat what we talked about yesterday in the challenge day 16. I think yesterday was 16. And this is so important. And if you guys go back, if you join the group and you go back to day 1 and 2 and 3, and what I tell you to do, it's so important, guys. And with everything going on right now with the COVID, and what you need to be doing to be able to be in a good place once your child starts back to school. And can you believe it's going to be 6 months later, pretty much? That's crazy, crazy, crazy. So make sure that the whole purpose, I'm not doing it to just waste time. I'm doing this to help you because it's so crucial that you do this to create that trail. And believe it or not, when your child's in school, if it's in writing, if it's not in writing, it never happened, right? Well, with this and what's going on today, if it's not recorded, it never happened because they don't see your child right now. So go and listen to challenge days 1 through 16 so that you can understand everything that is going on. I have a files section in the group where you can look at what I'm talking about as well on the videos. I actually have to update it a little bit. And we're going to be starting day 17 today. So I wanted to give you guys a teaser of goals, how important they are. This was a little bit on reading. I'm getting ready to head over to the group on math, and you guys got to get with this in regards to goals. And the reason I'm doing 3 days, today's the 3rd day of my challenge, in regards to goals. Today's day 17, but it's the third day of the challenge regarding goals. And the reason I'm talking about this is because guess what? This is the time to go and clean your IEP house. You got to clean the house. All right. You got to just start throwing stuff. All right. Get rid of it and revamp the whole thing. All right. You have the time to do it. Hopefully, maybe we're all in different situations, but this is the time to revamp and redo that goal in your child's IEP or those goals. All right. I've been crazy busy with revamping so many IEPs. It's crazy because people are taking advantage of the time to really go through it, now that their child's not in school and figuring out, okay, well, what should I do with this goal when there's 6 months of a gap, right? So set up a discovery call with me. It's free. And we'll talk. We'll see where you are. If you're feeling like not secure in your child's goals, now is the time. Do not feel insufficient or like a bad parent because you didn't catch the things that are going on with the goals. Like I said, it took me many years and almost 2 years to figure out how to write SMART goals. So that's why I do what I do, because I want you guys to learn it, and you will. Okay. That's my sole purpose. And so just know that this is the time to revamp your child's goals and to really focus on getting it right. Okay. For your child, because the goals are, in my opinion, the most important part of the IEP. After that, it's the services. After that, it's the accommodations. After that, it's the modifications. All right. So I will talk to you guys soon, and I'm getting ready to hop over to the group. So if you guys want to join, I will accept it. I'll give you about 3 minutes to join the group, and it's Autism Mama Rocks the IEP group. All you got to do is put it in the search section, and I will accept you. Okay. So Heather says, yes, my son is having issues. So go join the group. Go. My son is having issues in reading. We had a teleconference yesterday with his neuropsychologist, and I asked about an IEE. Good. Because of you planning ahead. Good. She said, I think that would be great. That would be great, but that doesn't mean the school district will take everything in the report into consideration. Very true. That is true. She wants to also request an eval. Okay. So yes, that's true. So you're part of the IEP team. So if you get an IEE, then the school system has to then take it into consideration. All right. And dependent on if they've done their own evaluation, they have to take it into consideration. And if it makes sense, it's scientifically based, research, peer reviewed, etc. There's some sort of documentation on what level your child is in. Make sure there's documentation on what testing and assessments were used. And as long as those types of things are done, along with it being from a valid, licensed person who's able to give reading evaluations, you should be pretty straight. If you need those kind of tips and tricks on how to, PPPN, as I say, the, plan, prepare, present, persuade, and negotiate. Basically what you're doing is you're presenting in a way that you're persuading them to take this on, and why. Okay. So after the evaluation, you need to have a conference with the neuropsychologist to process, what does all this mean? So I can then go present it to the school and persuade them to get on the boat. Okay. Nicole says yes. Allie says yes. Tara says yes and no. He reads really well and has an amazing vocabulary, but when reading a book, he can't tell you what has happened or any feelings in the book. Right. So that's the comprehension part. So you need to go back to the beginning and start with that visual imagery. Okay. So you got to go back to the beginning. If they're not getting the comprehension, which is the whole picture, you got to go back to the beginning. Okay. So what you're saying to me is he has vocabulary and fluency, but that's it. All right. So it's good he has vocabulary. It's good he reads really well, which means he's a fluent reader. But you can be a fluent reader and have a vocabulary. But if you don't understand the vocabulary and how you're reading it, you don't know what it means and don't know how to, if I asked you 3 questions in reference to the book, able to explain what happened, or able to, at least even with prompts, explain it, then the conceptualizing and understanding of what everything means, and really the comprehension piece, is not there. So that means you got to go back to the beginning. It's kind of like, when you do anything in life, sometimes just going back to the basics is the way to go. And then you just build again. And it's a lot better than if you're like kind of halfway through and you try to just take a couple steps back. Sometimes that doesn't work. And so with reading, it's a step ladder, like we were talking about in the group yesterday, Tara. And it's important to understand that step ladder. And if they don't accomplish one part of that step ladder, they can't move on to the next. So if he's up here and not at the last step, which is the comprehension, then he needs to come back down those stairs. Okay? All right, guys, I'm heading over to the group. I will talk to you soon. Post a 1 below if you're new. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. If you're catching the replay, hey, how are you? I'm so glad you joined. And I hope you guys join the group. I'd love to see you over there. You are so welcome, Heather. And I will talk to you guys. I'll rewatch Math Goals later tonight with my ice cream. All right. Yep. Heading over there now. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.